Welcome to Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. This podcast explores the transition to net zero and the systems driving real change in how we move, live and power our world. Every week I sit down with the people leading that change, those offering insight, innovation and impact in many ways people don't fully see until they hear their stories. If you're ready for real conversations that inspire action and drive change, please like this video, subscribe to the channel and join us on this journey, and let's cut through the noise and build a better future together. So on today's episode I have with me Gemma Robinson, and she is the EV project manager in the Highlands and Islands, otherwise known as HITRANS. Gemma, thank you ever so much for joining me. It's so lovely to see you on here, and it's your first podcast, isn't it, darling?
Well, it's not, Liz.
Is it not? Oh my goodness.
Sorry, no, it's not. I did one with Gary Comerford recently, a round table.
So he always grabs people early on. He always grabs people. Right. Well, that's all right, but that's okay. So you don't need to be nervous anyway. Then which is good. Which is good. So, okay, can we start off by talking a little bit about what you did before you started working at HITRANS? So, because you're up in Scotland at the moment, aren't you? But you weren't originally from Scotland. You kind of moved up there.
I've moved from the other end of the country. I grew up in Bournemouth, and I went to university in Nottingham. I've gradually come further north, and I studied product design. I've always been torn between art and science, so that was what made me choose product design. And strangely, I always like that innovation and improvement of things, so I think it sort of encompasses all of that. Well, I knew that when I picked it, but I guess you sort of learn why you make decisions after them. So that's what I did at university. I then moved down to North Devon and did my PGCE. So I became a primary school teacher. I was a primary school teacher for about 4 years.
Wow.
Teaching mostly, depending on where you are, primary 1 or reception. Mm-hmm. So the really little ones. And I had special educational needs as my sort of speciality. Mm. Inclusion's always been really important to me. So that's why I chose that speciality. And then after about 4 years, my husband and I had always come to Scotland separately. And we spent years trying to think of a business that we could start up here so that we could move to Scotland. And we ended up, we were actually planning our wedding, and we looked at getting a teepee brought up to Scotland from England. Cool. And it cost far too much. So we decided, well, what if we bought a teepee and started a business in Scotland and used our own teepees?
Wow.
So that was the start of Highland teepees. We hired out large event teepees, so they held like 50 people each. You could join them together, so you could have a wedding of 250 people.
Wow, gosh.
And we did that for 7 years before selling it to, weirdly, the company that we first approached for that quote.
Did you? Excellent.
Yeah.
I love that.
Based in Yorkshire, actually.
Oh, well, the old northerners.
Yeah. But it was an amazing 7 years. We got to see some private estates in Scotland that were incredible. It was an amazing way to see Scotland. It was fantastic to be the director of a business and get to make the changes and improvements that you're always talking about. You had that split second decision. You could make a change overnight, and that's so refreshing. And when you come away from that and don't have that anymore, you really value it, I think, because there's so many departments and people and processes that are involved.
Yeah, it means that you're quite agile, aren't you, when you're running your own business? So yeah. But so how long did you have the TP business for? It was a few years, wasn't it?
Yeah, we had it from 2010 to 2017. And we sold it and worked for the company we sold it to for a couple of years as part of the sale. so we moved down to Yorkshire for a little bit, which is beautiful. And then ultimately we missed Scotland. Scotland is where our heart is. And we found a house on a little piece of woodland, which we kind of fell in love with, bought it, and just decided to move and work out the jobs when we got there.
Wow.
So we moved up. We moved up, and then COVID hit. So I was actually still working remotely, and that was obviously before COVID. People didn't work remotely. So that was an interesting time, because there were, you didn't even have the team sort of processes that you have now. But I was made redundant, and I kind of did all sorts during COVID just to pay the bills. But as COVID came to an end, I started looking for a proper job. And a job came up at HITRANS, which was for project management, to deliver some faster chargers, 50 kilowatt chargers across North and West Scotland as part of a European project. So we worked with Northern Ireland and the Republic of Ireland as well. And it just brought together a lot of skill sets. I don't have project management training, but arguably all my roles have been in project management. Product design is project management, so is teaching to an extent, and definitely running your own business. So it's a very eclectic, sort of winding, meandering way to what I do. But it just felt like I'd been in training for that role. So when I started it just automatically felt right. It was my first role in transport, my first role in the public sector apart from teaching, which is very different. But it just works for me. I like working in that sector. And I really like working in transport. I've got a great team at HITRANS, very supportive, but also they give you a lot of freedom as well, which I really value. So yeah, that's my story so far.
I love that. Especially, like you say, that kind of ability to have you've got so many transferable skills, haven't you? And I think that's what people don't always realise, that, you work at one place, you have to look at other places where those skills can be transferred to, and you had loads. So that's brilliant. I have to ask you, was your husband from Scotland as well, or was he just from kind of down Bournemouth way as well?
No, he's a northerner. We have the north-south debate constantly. No, he's from Cheshire.
What does HITRANS do? Because it's separate to a council, it supports the council, and there are a number of kind of transport organisations throughout the country, aren't there? So can you just explain what one is?
Yeah, HITRANS. So it stands for the Highlands and Islands Transport Partnership. We are one of 7 regional transport partnerships across Scotland, and there's a different name for them, I think, in England, but like Transport for London is one. So the main aim is to coordinate some of the sort of transport initiatives that are happening. So we help councils to reach their government set transport objectives. But we're also kind of statutory consultants on the sort of ferry development plans, and each regional transport partnership has a regional transport strategy that they work to deliver, and those vary a lot depending on the region and the needs of each region. So a lot of ours talks about kind of remote and rural transport.
Because that's massive as well, isn't it? I mean, if we talk about the different aspects to your work, you're working on one major project, aren't you? But there's lots and lots of different aspects to that. Do you want to just give a little bit of background about what that project is?
Yeah, so I work for 3 of the councils within the HITRANS area and Shetland as well, to kind of centrally resource their plans and strategy development for EV infrastructure. That is through the EVIF programme, EV Infrastructure Funding Programme, which is the Scottish equivalent of the Levi programme.
Yeah.
There are some major differences. I don't fully know the ins and outs of Levi, so I can't really say what they are, but I know that there are some differences. But yeah, we work to sort of streamline and coordinate that strategy development, and bringing together those 4 councils particularly, who have a lot of inhabited islands between them. Just meant that we could share challenges, share learnings, look at the solutions that would work across the board. And one of the nicest things of doing the job has been bringing those councillors together and being able to share those challenges and build that relationship, and understand that they're not on their own to make an EV network happen.
And I suppose if we look right back to 2013, when we're talking now about Charge Place Scotland, aren't we? This, kind of Scotland was massively ahead of the rest of the UK with its charging infrastructure. And it was back in 2013 when Charge Place Scotland was set up, and the HITRANS councils were part of that, weren't they? And I can't even remember how many councils in total were part of the Charge Place Scotland network, but that was massive, wasn't it? And we're talking about not very many EVs or not many to choose from, with quite low range and things like that. So that was quite an innovative contract in its day, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was massive. It was done to kickstart EV uptake up here, and I think a lot of people would agree that it's done that. And one of the main things that really helped was having the RFID card access, so that people just had one access method across the whole country, and it just made it simple. So I think, yes, CPS has achieved a lot. It's a very different setup to most CPOs. Technically, it's a charge point network operator. So it is a bit different from a commercial CPO, but the model is changing. I think it was set up in 2013, and it's perhaps reached the limit of what it can do, and that's why we're looking to migrate off of Charge Place Scotland now, and come up with some different ways of operating the network. So that EVIF programme, like Levi, is made to attract private investment. So it's public funding matching private investment, and try to move the charging network from purely public funding to partly, at least, private funding as well.
Because the Charge Place Scotland contract itself, I mean, it's quite complicated, isn't it? Me and you've talked about
it's an understatement, Liz.
Yeah, I know. We could go into how I got involved with HITRANS in a minute, but it's one of those where you kind of think it's like an onion. You keep going, and there's more layers to it.
Yeah,
and I think
there's a song about that. Well, just like a great big onion. Yeah.
I'll sing it later. But the contract, and I think probably back in 2013, it was one of those, you set something off and you don't know what you don't know, and I that's one of my favorite phrases. And a number of councils kind of signed up to Charge Place Scotland, and so I did a little bit of research this morning. It started off with 55 chargers across the councils, but we're into kind of like the 3,000s, aren't we? I can't remember exactly how many, but it's changed so much, and it's given people that ability to be able to charge en route. And even just looking at some of the stuff we've looked at, and like I say, I'll go into that. We can go into that in a second. It just gives people that ability to be able to do that and be able to move to sort of a more sustainable way of driving. And that's what the Scottish, because it was set up by Transport Scotland, wasn't it? And that's what their aim was, to push the infrastructure so that there were more people actually driving EVs to reduce emissions. And that was such a, like I say, it was kind of looked at as, wow, look at this project, it's amazing. And lots of layers.
Lots of layers, yeah. And I think, there's 32 councils on it, but there's also 400 plus private hosts on it as well, so it's a complex beast.
Yeah, just a little bit. So shall we just talk a little bit about how I got involved and how Full Circle got involved? Because me and you started chatting a little bit on LinkedIn, didn't we? And I was supposed to be meeting you, and we've still not met face to face, have we? It's ridiculous. We've been talking for months now, and we've still not met face to face. But we kind of got chatting about various things. Do you want to kind of just give a little bit of background about that?
Yeah. So I think I was always very intrigued by Full Circle continuous improvement as a title, and then as a business, as you started to talk about it. And I fully agree, from running a business, that you don't know what you don't know comes from partly that as well. But we started talking about some of your methods into that kind of continuous improvement. And you've obviously got your diagnostic tool, which is a really good starting point for anyone. But then you talked about being able to do a maintenance deep dive, and that sat really well with me. We had, as a region, struggled with a sort of feeling that things weren't working in terms of maintenance. The current setup wasn't working for us, and we didn't have the backup behind it to be able to say why it wasn't working. So you came in, and I'm always going to use the analogy like a bloodhound. On a sense.
Calls me a bloodhound. Hey, there you go.
So you were really able to quantify, qualify, evidence, I guess, what we'd been feeling, and just put some facts behind that to be able to take to the maintenance providers and back office to be able to talk to them about. And they've been really open to those suggestions. There's a lot of different processes in place that don't always join up because of how the systems had to develop. And I think a big part of what's come out of it is just needing to be able to communicate, particularly where those gaps are.
It's funny because when you're saying about being a bloodhound, I always say that because of my little spicy brain, I'm a bit like Tom Cruise in Minority Report, where he's kind of got all that information up here and he's pulling all of that. So we started off, didn't we, by having a session with the 4 councils. So the 4 councils that had these kind of gut feelings. And when you work in improvement, it's kind of like you recognise that people who've got gut feelings, it's great that you've got a gut feeling about something, but people whoever you need to be speaking to about any problems that you've got aren't going to take you seriously until you've got backup, until you can evidence it.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to kind of get the guys, the kind of the managers we were just on Teams. It's too far away, isn't it, really? We're talking a long way, Shetland, Orkney, Western Isles, Argyll and Bute, although I have been to Argyll and Bute and that was gorgeous. But, it's hard to get everybody into the room, whereas a Teams call can do that, can't it? And hearing some of the things that the council officers and the managers were saying, that we feel it's this, we feel it's that, these things are happening, those things are happening. And I totally got it, and that's where my brain just goes off. Oh, because of my the way, like I say, because of my way my brain works, but also because of my background. And said to you, haven't I, that my background's been initially in service and maintenance, and this stuff doesn't leave you. Not when you've got a brain like mine, anyway. But it doesn't leave you. It's a bit like going back to the onion. It's putting more layers on. It turns into a cabbage, anyway. But you end up building all of that information. But just having those initial conversations, I think in a way it was even good to have the council guys, and girls talking to one another, because even they don't always get chance to sort of be working together on things, do they?
No, I think in councils, certainly that I talk to up here, a lot of them, it's either their full job but they're the only one in the company doing it, or it's only part of their job. So they've got other responsibilities as well. So you can feel on your own with the sort of challenges from EV, and so much is happening in the EV industry all the time because of the pace it's evolving, that I think just joining those people together and being able to share those challenges, being able to come up with solutions together has been really good.
And I think because when we started moving through this process, some of the tools that I was kind of introducing as well. So we used like a Miro board, didn't we? So that their thoughts and ideas were going onto that. You were on there. We can all see it live, and it worked quite well, didn't it? Because that was kind of like a repository for all of the information. So we were kind of building on these are the issues, but it's also, and I talk about root cause quite a lot. It's about okay, those are the issues, but where does that come from? So it was my job as part of what we did with the deep dive work to actually do my bloodhound stuff and just get to these are the issues. Where do they come from? Are there any other ones? How often? How often? How many? What were they? Why was that information not communicated? If it was, what was missing? What do we need to add? What was good? What was, so it's kind of, I don't want to say the good, the bad, the ugly, because it's not quite like that, but it was highlighting all of the gaps, wasn't it, really?
Yeah. And it comes at a key time because as we said earlier, Charge Place Scotland is ending and people have to migrate off that back office. So being able to understand what we need more than anything, what needs to change, and be able to take that into procurement for the next back office, the next maintenance provider. I think it's invaluable at this point in time. Some of the things that have come up have been because there had to be a national approach to some things and it couldn't be regionalised, but that's changing, and so I'm really hopeful that we will get a better result for the councils.
And I mean, and if you look at some of the councils in England, some of them are only just kind of moving forward with their infrastructure. So if we think about this as kind of lessons learned, if you're watching and listening, you're actually from a council in England, probably need to have a chat with Gemma, because these lessons learned, if you're quite early on with the infrastructure, these are the things that you need to be talking to other councils about, because actually it's good learning from other places, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think when I started in HITRANS and I was working on the Faster project, it was a fairly, I hate saying straightforward because it wasn't that, but it was a fairly small scope for a project that I needed to do, where Edith has opened that up. Scotland is broadening its sort of horizons in an EV sense, and talking to people, knowing what's out there, knowing what other people do, how they've solved things, has been invaluable.
And actually, what we're talking about, the end result is making sure that all of the charges in the HITRANS region are reliable, that the driver actually has a seamless charging experience, and they know that those chargers are going to be working. I mean, there's some real challenges, especially up in the Highlands area, aren't there? Because some of them are just so remote.
Yeah. Yeah, just the geography makes it difficult, particularly in the middle of summer, to, booking a ferry, booking accommodation can be weeks, can be months before you can do that. So that in itself is a challenge, but there are also things like connectivity challenges as well. So all of that kind of adds up to make reliability more of a challenge. But there's a lot of opportunities in the region as well. Part of my strategy development is looking at yes, those are the challenges, but what can we do to solve them? And as well as looking at the maintenance as one of the big things we'd like to improve for the future of EV charging up here. We're also looking at whether we can utilise local energy, because it's massively constrained and curtailed up here, and it costs an awful lot for the residents on the likes of Orkney, Shetland, to power anything electrical. Their electricity bills are, I think, on average twice that of that on the mainland.
And that seems madness, doesn't it?
It does, when they're producing a lot of the energy that the nation is requiring for transition. So it comes into that just transition. So there's a huge opportunity in terms of using locally produced energy, but that in itself is a big industry and a big learning curve to get into. There's a lot of red tape around making changes to that.
I was going to say, so am I right? There are regulations in Scotland that say X percentage has to be exported, or is that? But because there's some regulation that means that that's why they have to pay more for their electricity energy in a local base. Is that right, or am I totally barking up the wrong?
I don't fully understand it from that point of view, if I'm honest. From my point of view, from a HITRANS and transport perspective, a lot of people rely on personal transport more because there isn't the public transport, there isn't the road network so they spend more on their transport, and that's partly where that high electricity costs would come for owning an EV.
Gosh.
But in terms of, there are a lot of policy. I don't fully understand the kind of buying and selling regulations up here, but I know it's an issue.
Something. Yeah, there's something. We'll probably have to get you to chat to Doogie Blair, because he'll probably know all of that kind of stuff. He's been on the podcast before, but he's a very good font of knowledge. But if we kind of come back to the councils, the output that we kind of put together from all of this, the deep dive itself, was a massive report, wasn't it? I mean, God, it took me weeks. It really took me weeks to actually write this report, because we're talking 4 councils with kind of various levels of data and kind of pulling it all together. But the reason for that was, like I said, you've got to go from that gut feeling to something that you can evidence, to kind of go back to the provider and say, can you just have a look at this, please? And that was it was a long process, wasn't it, really?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was, and it's now evolved into a very, I think, practical action list that we're working through weekly. So it takes a while, to establish that team to talk to and to pull out the parts of the report that are relevant to which parts of their team and things. But I think we've made some huge kind of leaps and bounds, I think, recently in what's going to come of that. So that's exciting.
It is really good, because I mean we're looking at so the report that I kind of put together for HITRANS and the councils. So each council had its own section, because there were certain issues that were across the 4 councils, but there were certain issues that were unique to that specific council. So it was about kind of pulling out and kind of saying, right, these are the things that you're all experiencing, but these are unique to you and you and you, etc. But also actually having a kind of coming out the other end with it's not just a report, it's like you said about the actions, it's kind of, right, this is what we can do in the short term, this is what we can do in the medium term, this is longer, and the idea is, and my point about quick wins is quick wins when you're talking about improvement is something that gives people confidence. It makes people, when you're taking a load of things that people have gone, God, that's not working. Actually, if you put a list together and kind of go, right, we can do these quite quickly, and some of these are little, some of these are a bit more complicated, but it's that level of comfort and kind of, oh, okay, so it is working. So you kind of get those out the way, so people start getting that level of confidence and just feeling, right, okay. So
I think it's feedback on the input they've put in. They've made an effort to try and understand the problem, and they want that feedback of making something happen and come from it.
And it is quite hard because, like you said, now we're talking to the provider, and actually that's been really interesting as well, hasn't it? And talking to them and actually bringing everybody together. It's this process is about bringing everybody along, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Not just it's not pointing fingers, and I'm not. That's not what I'm about, and I know that that's not what you're about. We're just on about, it's the truth, really. This is the truth. Your version of the truth is this, etc., etc. But let's kind of work together to make it work for everybody.
Yeah. It's keeping in mind that focus on improving things.
Yeah, and building a level of trust. Mm-hmm. In the way that you communicate with each other, because it's the same with any, even when you were working for yourself, and it's the same with me. You end up just I'm thinking everybody whoever works, you end up just so focused on what you're doing. You need to get to a point where you're talking to, yes, you're in that business, they're in that business is involved as well, or supply chain or whatever, but it's coming together to have those common conversations and kind of just saying, right, these are the things that can we just have a look at this, please?
Yeah, it's really easy to get I guess just completely immersed in your own bubble, and sometimes you just need to talk to other people and understand that actually from their bubble, like it looks very different.
I mean, I've talked to other councils in England as well, and you've kind of got your whole procurement process that people go through. So in England, I know that people have actually been going through procurement in the councils for EV charging through Levi, and then they send out the tenders, and the responses come in, but then you've got procurement, and then it moves to somebody else. And that could be, and it depends what council it is, to whether that's highways, whether that's kind of a sustainability section, or even for me trying to find who's the person in charge of EV charging. Well, it's like you said earlier, actually in a lot of cases they've just got so many other things that they're doing. It's just like a little slice. It's like having a loaf, isn't it, that you're slicing up. It's just a part of it.
Yeah, definitely. I think one of the nice things about working for HITRANS, we're quite a small organisation. There's about 25 of us, so there isn't that huge amount of departments. But I always think that we pack quite a punch for for a small organisation. We're quite far-reaching, but it is nice to be part of a smaller organisation that doesn't have quite such an extensive range of departments.
And you're very proactive, in what you're doing. And actually, I know that the councils recognise how proactive you're being in, across your projects, even if it has got little different streams to it. That makes a massive difference with that kind of the way that you think. And I've said to you before, and I know you probably don't like me saying this to you, but everybody who I speak to, that when I mention Gemma Robinson, they all go, "Oh, she's lovely." Because
Thank you.
of the fact that you are proactive, you're positive, and you just got you just get on with it, don't you?
I'm quite a hopeful person, and I I I like to make things better. That's part of my motivation. So yeah, I think I am quite a positive person.
You're glass half full, definitely. As I would say, as I'd like to think. Well, I am mostly glass half full. But so if we kind of look at, so you like you said, the Charge Place Scotland is kind of migrating or going to be migrating, and if we kind of look at and this is a kind of a big question, and I did mention I was going to say this to you before. If we look at this as kind of like in 5 years' time, what would you like to look back on this project being? What would your legacy? What would you like your legacy to be for this?
From my project in HITRANS, or
Yeah.
from the maintenance work that we do?
Well, no, no. Well, do you
Um,
know what? If we look at it, because it all feeds into it, doesn't it?
yeah, I I would like, I guess I would like a bigger voice for some of the rural and remote communities, and a recognition that they need to do things differently for it to work in their communities. And Transport Scotland have been very supportive of that on this programme. They've actually been very flexible with us, which has been brilliant. But it is a process, and it does take time as well. Um, I would like there to be tangible improvements to the service. I would like it to be more reliable. I would like it to be cheaper from an energy point of view, and fairer for those people in those places. I've spent a lot of time trying to get to live somewhere that I love, and I love it partly because of the nature that's around me. And I would like to have the opportunity to make the choices that protect that nature for the future. So personally, that's my drive, and I'd like to give other people that choice. So yeah, I guess that's my ultimate motivation.
I love that. And do you know what? It's funny. When putting it that way, it's that's a lovely way of thinking about it. You know, think you're thinking about it in order to be able to kind of give back. And actually, I'm only just going to put this in as a little side tangent. Me and my husband went to see the film The Salt Path last week. I don't know whether anybody's actually seen it. I was watching and listening. Have you seen it, Gemma?
I've not seen it. I've read the book
Yeah,
though.
yeah. So Rich, my husband, had read the book, but oh my God, it really set me off thinking. I mean, it was some of it was quite hard, some of the things that they had to put up with, but I was just kind of, it makes you think about your place in the world, and
Hmm.
what are you doing? Do we really need to be getting stressed? Because it started off by this couple being really really stressed about a situation that was happening, but then kind
Yeah.
of changed, didn't it, over time? And it's a lovely story. And in fact, my husband didn't even recognise that it was Gillian Anderson to start off with. So it's Gillian Anderson and Jason Isaacs. So very, very, very good film. So if you've not seen it, guys, please just try it, honestly. But just, that kind of thing, and thinking about having I wrote a post, a newsletter a few weeks back about what the future of kind of like an EV charging hubs could be like, for example,
Hmm.
and actually thinking about nature and trying to do it so that we're not all trying to just keep doing the same thing we've always done, which is we all go to a motorway service station, we all go there, actually looking at things. And we've kind of lost I don't know about you up in Scotland, but it feels like we've kind of lost our town centres. But in a way, I don't want to go there because it's all a bit, bleh, you know, I'd like somewhere a bit more in nature. I mean, you know, people who are watching this will be able to see. I can see you've got sunshine and trees outside your window. I'd love that. I've kind of, you know, no, I'm looking out of my window. It's not sunny. I can tell you that one. But it, you know, these things, we're just so busy pushing ourselves all the time, aren't we?
Yeah, and there's a phrase that stayed with me that I saw Sarah Stoneman write recently that was about charging as a pleasure. And I think that's a really nice way to sort of sum it up. And, you know, as a sort of fact, there's, I think 95% of communities live on the coast in the Western Isles. And they are some of the first places that will feel the effects of climate change. So, it's something that they live with sort of day to day. So I think it is a big drive to be able to make choices that will change that.
Yeah. I think that's a really lovely thought. Thank you for sharing that. Seriously, Gemma, I really appreciate that. I want to ask you now, so coming to the end, I want to ask you the process and the project that we're still working through at the moment, but what have you personally learned through this specific process, this project that we're on, either about kind of the infrastructure itself, or leadership, or you, or what's come out of it for you?
I think so much of it, actually. There's probably an awful lot if I give it some time to think about. But I think partly is just understanding people's different perspectives on things. I think the importance of communication, and that we all do that differently. Like some of us talk a lot, some of us don't talk a lot. Being able to stand up for what you're aiming for while still considering other people's points of views. I think, yeah, just I think every team you work with is different. They've got different communicators, different skills, and just learning how to work with different people, I think, is a really important one. And I think that, you know, so many people do want to come together and make things better. Like, most people are in their job to do the best they can, or to improve things for people, or to get to a goal. So sometimes you just have to speak up for yourself and highlight that that's not happening or not working, and it's having the courage to do that and see through the changes that are needed.
I think that's very true. I think some of it is just about lots of people just put up with things.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's about being strong enough and feeling that, you know, I'd say speaking your truth, but you know, but you've actually got to be able to recognise that, you know, who will listen. And actually, even me and you working together, you know, we've kind of yeah. I guess I do talk a lot more than you. I know I do. Sorry, but you know, but even we all have our different ways of working, and sometimes the way that we adapt might not necessarily be the way that somebody wants us to adapt. So you end up adapting, thinking, oh, that person wants me to be like this. This is part of kind of masking in some ways. You know, that person, you know, wants me to be like that, so I'll be like this. But actually, no, what you want is this. So it's just coming to that kind of agreement and understanding and communicating, isn't it?
It is, and it's the same within a business. You have people adapting to make workarounds, and it's understanding what those are and why they were put in place and where they're not working and where they could work better. So yeah, so much of it is communication.
It's massive, and that's what I always stand up for. So one last question: what advice would you give to a local authority or local authorities who are either starting their journey or they've started looking at things and thinking, not quite sure what's going on here. There's something that actually I might need to just pull up. What would you suggest to them?
I think following your gut instinct is a good one, and looking into that like we did with the diagnostic and the maintenance deep dive. So yeah, I could definitely speak to you. But I think also, talking to other councils is invaluable. Just people that are in a similar region or setup to you, but even those that aren't, there's always something to learn from other people. That, like you said, like you talked about transferable skills earlier. There's always something you can learn from talking to other people, and I'd say you're not on your own, and just have that conversation and see where it goes.
I think it is about don't be scared to look, but be prepared that it might be bigger than you think, or it might not. Actually, like you say, go with your gut feeling. But and you don't have to use me for a full circle. It would be wonderful if you did, but just utilize somebody. If you haven't got the time to do stuff, bring somebody in who from the outside who can just see in as an independent pair of eyes, because that's what I tried to do with you guys, wasn't it? And I think I'm quite good at challenging. If I think there's something that needs calling out, as long as I feel it's a safe enough space to do it in and people are happy, then I will call it out. In your role, and there will be lots of other people not lots, there'll be a few people, Gemma, that are doing this. Think about your, if you can give advice to that person who is in your role or a similar role, it doesn't, working on EV infrastructure, is there advice you give to them as well?
That does bring me back to what I was going to say, actually, is that you don't have to do it all. Like in EV, you can't possibly know everything there is to know about every aspect of EV. There's just too much happening and too much changing, too much evolving. So talk to the experts, get specialists in, and I guess just keep focused on what you're trying to achieve and the best way to do it. But I think a lot of people will already be doing that. I don't think I'm necessarily giving them anything new there, but that would be how I'd approach it.
No, that's brilliant. And listen, it's been lovely to have you on here, even if Gary did have you, on his podcast before mine. But hey, I'm not bothered. No, seriously, no. It's been absolutely lovely. We hit it off straight away, didn't we? And hopefully when you're listening and watching this, you'll realise that she's an absolutely lovely person and just wants to do the best and just brilliant work up in HITRANS, and onwards and upwards, I reckon. But so thank you, Gemma. Thank you ever so much for joining me. It's been lovely to talk to you.
You too. Thanks for having me, Liz.
So, and to everybody else, I'm going to say thank you for listening and watching. But all the same, as I usually say, please watch, listen, share, like, subscribe, all that malarkey, and take a look at our LinkedIn podcast page for Electric Evolution. Yeah, just share the words. And again, thank you very much. I'll see you next time. Bye. Thanks for watching Electric Evolution with Liz Allan. If you've enjoyed this episode, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. If you're a charge point operator, local authority or stakeholder in EV charging, I'd love to talk to you about our Charge Point Evolution framework. It's designed to help you create a seamless EV driver journey, boost utilisation and maximise your return on investment. Alternatively, if you know someone who'd be a great podcast guest or might be interested in sponsoring an episode, you can email me on liz@fullcircleci.co.uk. Thanks again for watching.